Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to another battle report. This game sees Brian in the room, I'm glad to say, for another game. He's going to be using Soviets for the first time tonight, so this could be a bit of a steep learning curve for him, but I'm sure he'll have some fun. We're using the Berlin Soviet Red Banner Infantry again, so at least he does have some good quality units to work with. We're giving that a bit of a tweak to the lists that we've seen before, just to see how that goes. And I'm going to be using the Romanians, so that we're going to see these guys up against something different, not just up against Germans. This is a short format report as well, folks, just concentrating on turn summaries because it's a weeknight. If we did the long reports, it would probably take us till about midnight to play the game out, and I don't really fancy that. But I'll still put chapters down as I did in the last video, so it will just help me with navigation even on the simple little video. And I've got ways of improving what I did for last week's video where I used chapters to show where the turn summaries were. I'm going to have chunks, big chunks, instead of individual turns all over the place, they're going to be big chunks in the video, so it's going to make navigation even easier, but that's only obviously for the long format videos. Anyway, let's go over, have a look at the lists, the missions, and crack on with the game. Right, folks, this is a list that Brian is going to be using today. Now, Brian isn't really familiar with Soviets at all, nope. So he's in at the deep end here, but he has at least got good quality troops, which is something you don't always say when you're dealing with Soviets. So there's two formations and a little bit of support here. First of all, the simple and most straightforward bit is the T-34 Hero T-34-85 formation. So these guys are aggressive, confident, trained, but they get the crafty rule, which means your movement orders are on a 3-up instead of a 4-up. So normal kind of motivations, they're aggressive, so they're hitting a 3, so you can be quite vulnerable. Yeah. But they are hard hitting against medium stuff because they're anti-tank 12. They can go incredibly fast. They've got a tactical of 12, which can be really handy. But they can also, if the terrain is in favour, they can do up to, I think it's like 25 inches cross-country dash speed. Yes. So they can go really, really fast, but you have to be careful with them because they can die quickly. So there's HQ and 2 platoons. Then there is a red banner formation. We've used these a couple of times, but we've been using platoons of 10, and this we're going to use platoons of 7 for a change, just to have 3 on the table and maybe be in more places at once. It's good to have larger platoons, but sometimes it's better to have a platoon that can go somewhere else or maybe come in as a reserve and help back one up. So each one of these, apart from that, well, these two here, I've got Panzerfausts, right? They've got 2 Panzerfausts per turn. These guys are careful, so just like Germans, fearless if the commissar stays alive, otherwise confident, and veteran. And they're hitting a 2 in assault. Nice. Unless they're using their Faust, the Faust hit on a 3 in assault, but that's still pretty good if you've got 2 Fausts against tanks. So these 2 platoons have got Fausts. This one doesn't. It's got a heavy machine gun, so it's maybe a bit more of a support to the other 2. It can maybe look after an objective whilst those 2 are away doing something. Then HQ is just HQ. There's nothing different about them. They don't have Fausts or such likes. And part of the formation is this, they almost never leave home without it if you're a Soviet, is the 6-tube medium mortar platoon. These guys are not careful, they're not veteran, they're just aggressive, confident, but they're re-rolling misses. Once they range in, they can start to do a bit of damage.
Those are the 6 pieces.
So these are good quality guys. And then the support, I've not used these in a very long time, but you know, I'm thinking to myself, a lot of the time, if you're Soviets, you're coming up against brigade Panthers with a front armour of 10. These guys have got anti-tank 15, and they're careful. I think they're careful, fearless veterans. They've only got a rate of fire of 1 though, right? But because they're careful, that will help them survive, and let them fire out more shots than they would have if they had a rate of fire 2 and they were only aggressive, for instance. So they could be a decent ambush weapon if you're up against tough tanks. And just so you know, in terms of a split, that's 41 points, and then that's 59 points. You know, so you can mess about with that, but that's a good split for on the table and in
the tanks
and reserve. So the good quality guys, smaller units of infantry than we've used before, to see if that will give a different way of playing them from having rather than having just two big units of infantry. So there you go. That's the Berlin Soviet list. So here is today's Romanian list. There are 2 formations and support. First formation is the motorised infantry. Second formation is the armour, and then that's the support. So to go through it all, it's not a very big formation in both cases, but they're careful. You know, all the Romanians are careful, which means it's a bit more survivable than you might think. These are the elite guys. Remember, guys, you can play, using the cards, you can play the weaker guys, you know, the aggressive types. If, you know, you get a lot more of them. But here we've got 2 platoons, HQ, and 4 medium mortars. They have Fausts, that's the platoons. You can also give them Shreks, but I needed those points elsewhere. But altogether, these guys are careful, confident, trained, but with the possibility of them, and the last stand is a 5-up, right? But it's a possibility of them being elite. If you roll a dice for each one before they get used in the game, either in deployment or coming on from reserve, they can go from trained up to veteran, and that last stand can be improved to a 4. So 1 unit, 1 formation. Then we've got the tanks. These guys are careful, confident, green, but they can go with 5-up last stand. They can go to careful, confident, trained with a 4-up last stand if they get the elite stand. Now, elite rating rather. These guys are in platoons of 3. That's the HQ. 2 platoons of 3. So that 5-up last stand can be a problem for them. Now they also have armoured infantry with them. It should be the command bases over there. 7 bases, same size as these guys, and they have a Faust as well. You know, I could have 2 Shreks and no Faust, but I thought I'd rather drop the Shreks here, give them a Faust, and that's the formation. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 careful units in it, but maybe a wee bit squishy, with them just being medium tanks. Panzer IVs are as standard, guys. Then a support. 3 armoured cars. These are all the 20mm version. It's not like the Germans set up with 1 MG. They're all 20mm versions. 3 TAC Crusaders. Now these guys are quite nasty. They've got a 36-inch range, which is pretty good for a static anti-tank gun, as you can imagine. And anti-tank 13. So they've got a good reach, and they hit quite hard. Because they're careful, they're also hard to kill. Then you've got the artillery. These guys are trained as a starting point for ranging in, but they can become veteran if you roll right. And if you've got a foot observer, guys, not even a vehicle, but guy on foot, if he can be a veteran as well, or a HQ being a veteran, that means you've got the combination to give some effective artillery support. So there you go, guys. Quite a lot of stuff there. It's set up to attack or defend, and it's got 2 sources of smoke. I should say I'm not using these as the models, the 100mm. I'm using them as 75s. I've not been able to source the 75mm. They were a special order gun. The 75mm, it's got 1 less firepower, 1 less anti-tank as well, I believe. But it's got smoke, and that's more useful than possibly destroying a tank if your opponent is really, really unlucky. I'd rather have smoke, and you can have 2 batteries of artillery plus the mortars, so it's potentially you can have 3 smoke bombardments from your Romanians. But there you go, folks. Romanians, I like using them. It was my first army that I ever collected, and in V4 there's so many different ways of using them, and the guys are really quite tough, a lot tougher than they were in version 3. Though, as I said, with the cards you can play them as poorer quality infantry, but obviously much more of them. Today's mission is Dust Up. Classical mission that is always a challenge. It's a challenge because both players have to take an objective. You don't have a defensive posture, but you still have to defend what you've got. At the same time, you have got to go and take an objective from your opponent. So it's a great test of your list. It's a great test of your understanding of terrain, because you have to potentially choose which quarter you want to defend from, but also where you're going to be attacking into, where the reserves are coming in. There's quite a lot going on. Both players have the reserves as well, and they're delayed, so it can be a bit of a slow burner. And once you've deployed, you're going to roll a dice to see who goes first. So you can't be sure, even if you're nominally the attacker, you can't be sure you're going to go first. And whoever does go first, it is the meeting engagement rule. So no bombardments, aircraft, shooting is at moving rate of fire and such like. So it's a simple mission, but a very demanding mission, and one which can also take a bit of time to get started. Right folks, we have deployed. It's Dust Up. I rolled high, so I was the attacker, and I chose this side to attack from. I just like to look at that hill. It could potentially be quite dominating for anti-tank guns, observers and such likes. So that meant Brian had to deploy over here. He's got a good solid area of terrain to hide in to begin with. Remember guys, this is a circular area in the middle of the battlefield, and then that's where the objectives are, like that, and then everything else within these is deployment zones, and as you know, it's delayed reserve, so it can be a bit of a slow burner. So I placed objective here, Brian placed his objective there. That way he's got potentially a nice clear route for his reserves to arrive and come in here. Putting it over here would give him issues with cross checks, so he could prepare the way and have an easy route in for his tanks. And then I placed one here for my reserves to move up to, and then Brian placed one here. And then Brian, what else have you got? What's all in reserve first of all, actually?
So in reserve is the tank platoon. So the T-34s, they're all there. I think I came to 41 points. So 41 points off and 59 on.
And
so
you were thinking about maybe swapping one out for them, but decided to keep them on.
Yeah, because rate of fire 1, they're going to have to do any movement. They're not going to be able to fire much with rate of fire 1, so they're going to be more a defensive gun, I think, to start with. So I've put them quite defensive just to protect this area with the 2 deployment markers in it.
Yeah, because they can fire up towards me, but also towards any reserves that come on. And if they stay on the ground at long range, I need 7s to hit them. So what else have you got?
So I basically deployed one of the units with the Panzerfaust up in the forward objective, because obviously the 2 shots in the Panzerfaust might stop any tanks coming in. And then the back here, I've got my mortars and the big guns. So the idea being that, hopefully protect this with just a small unit. So I want to be aggressive with the rest of the list. So basically on this side of the table, I've deployed my 2 infantry units to make their way towards the village. And when they're in there, they can start going through the terrain, ready for an attack when the tanks come on.
Yeah, they can hide behind the village to a large degree and then use bulletproof cover.
To get quite close to you, actually.
Yep.
And then launch the assault when the tanks have arrived as well. So when the tanks come on, because I've got 3 units off, they might take a while to come on, but I'm going to have them all built up, and when everything's on the table, make the final push.
Right. Well, I've got even more platoons in reserve, folks. I've got my armoured cars, but then I've got my armoured infantry and all of my Panzer IVs. So they might not even all make it onto the table. That can happen when you've got lots of small units that are not that expensive, so to speak. It's not an optimal split for reserves, but I decided to do it for this game just because of the static nature of the rest of my list. Might regret that. Anyway, I have got a platoon of infantry along here with some mortars behind them, anti-tank guns, and then another platoon of infantry around here with my HQ in a position to support all of the platoon commands. And then I've got my artillery over here. Now, in terms of my elite roles, this platoon of infantry are elite, which means they're a 3-up skill now, but more importantly, probably a 4-up last stand, as are these guys, as is the company HQ and the artillery. So because the company HQ can spot and he's on the same veteran rating as artillery, I can use 3-up base rating from arranging in, which is a good combination. He didn't get the elite. I'm assuming I have to roll for him too. He didn't get the elite, so if he's calling in the artillery, it's on his trained rating. So I've got, I don't know, it feels a bit more static to begin with. I can't afford to get too close to these guys with mine because they'll just chew me up. So this could be quite an interesting game to see who's going to be aggressive to begin with. Because remember, it's delayed reserves. So we'll clear all the markers up and come back. Well, actually, we're going to roll off on camera, folks, to see who actually goes first. Right, so highest goes first. 3 and 5. Okay, so you go first, Brian.
Good.
No artillery bombardments for you in the first turn. And all shooting is a moving rate of fire. I think you're really just more concentrating on movement. So
Movement, yeah.
we'll come back for that, folks. Turn 1.
So Soviet turn 1 is really just concentrating on everything here staying put, and they're all dug in, going to the ground, but it's moving up my infantry. So I managed to get both units moved up. They both managed to do a follow me. So this unit managed to do a follow me and get some of them into the bulletproof cover in the building, and everyone else bunched up, and the commissar and the HQ has moved up behind them as well. And this has done a follow me in behind this building to give me plenty cover for any shots coming away. So moving forward but staying in cover.
And no shooting this turn?
No shooting this turn.
Which is quite often what happens in this mission, folks. Romanian turn 1, so no movement from me. I can't, with what I've got on the table, I've kind of committed everything that's mobile to reserves. I could have had armoured cars on, for instance, and that probably would have helped, just to shoot up some infantry, so that's maybe a wee blunder. But I'm just going to stay, shoot and put. So in terms of shooting, the artillery with the HQ spotting managed to range in here, and I think I got about 4
bases.
Four.
Three were in bulletproof cover, one was out.
4 hits, but they all managed their saves. And then the mortars tried to range in on this house using the observer, but needed 5s because these guys are only trained and they didn't manage it. Attack Recitas fired into the house, got a hit as well, but that was a save. So that's it for me, folks. I'm going to have to see what happens now. Will these guys unpin and keep coming forward into all these guys here? Turn 2.
So for Soviet turn 2, I've concentrated on moving up and trying to stay in bulletproof cover. So this first unit across here has moved across with a follow me into this building here. So they're basically within this building. These are just in the ground floor of this building.
There's one guy
never made it across, but he's sitting there. And I moved the HQ into the middle so that they can actually help re-rolls on both platoons with us at the moment.
And they're in the building as well.
They're in the building as well. This second platoon got a bit spread out because I tried to follow me, and as you can see, they never quite made it. So they're a bit sprung out here with their full movement rates. I've got
platoon commander.
I've got the commissar stuck here in this building, 2 guys stuck in the street, and 4 bases now in the building here as well. But I'm trying to get the bulletproof cover to minimise anything coming at me. And then from across here, it was about shooting. So I tried with the guns. Why not? You know, they're not doing anything else, but it failed to hit anything.
Needed 7s because of my careful status.
Yeah, just yeah. But I managed to roll in on my attempt to get your mortars in. I managed to kill a base, but hopefully now I can start pinning those away.
Well, the mortars are pinned, the infantry are pinned, and it forces me as well to make decisions. I've been using my artillery against your guys on the way in. Am I going to have to turn my guns against your guns? Mm-hmm. Because I don't want that platoon to get worn down too quick. We were thinking about possibility of an assault for Brian early doors, but these guys are like Panzer Grenadiers, so rate of fire pinned is 2, so there was just too many of them
13
around.
Shots coming in, potential defensive fire shots.
Yeah, so he decided move up, stay in cover a bit, wear me down a bit. So Romanian turn 2, everything was okay for motivation. In terms of movement, this platoon here is kind of 2 bases have stayed put and the rest are kind of moving around. 2 in the church, one behind, and then these guys here. I just want to protect my flank, because these guys are going to come in. They're a bit strung out just now, but they will come in, so I want to be... I don't want these guys dealing with 2 platoons. In terms of firing, the mortars tried to range in on those mortars and failed again. That's 2 turns have failed. And then my good guys failed to range in here. They needed a 4, but 3 dice, no range in. That's unfortunate. In terms of shooting, this platoon and the attack sitters together managed to get 3 hits on them, but 3 saves. I could have fired the rest of these guys, this platoon here, in the hope of getting a pin, but you know, as a 3-up motivation with his HQ beside him, I thought I'm just going to keep them got on the ground, which means he has to hit me with the artillery to get a pin on me. So, fairly ineffectual from me that turn, guys. Literally nothing killed, but more importantly, artillery failing to kill anybody. Turn 3.
So this is my turn 3. So movement across this side of the table. I suddenly realised with horror that these guys have a cross check and a 5, so stuck behind the wall was not very good. So I've managed to bring a dash around the back of the sort of small unit here, and then a follow me because I'm aiming to get hull down on this hill to dominate anything coming on this side of the table. And across this side of the table, I've consolidated this unit into this building here, so they're all now in the 2 sets of buildings.
Yeah, there's about 2 bases in each building.
Each building and in each of the stories, and then everything consolidated here with the the HQ given re-rolls if needed across both. So everything is moved, and then it was the mortars, and although it was ranged in, you managed to make all your saves. So I've got them pinned, but still not enough for me to risk a charge in at the moment. So
there would be too much. We're doing a calculation, and because I've got these guys protecting the flank now, if that was attacked, then it would be 6 dice straight away from there, plus all of these guys. I mean, even pinned, they're putting out 2 dice a base. So if they were ordinary infantry and not these Panzergrenadier Romanians, they'd be in trouble. But as it is, it's too risky.
So I'm hoping I can whittle down another turn, because I'm never getting reserves in this turn. Rolled, no reserves. So if I can get a unit of tanks in and then follow up with some infantry, then I might have a good next turn.
Your infantry are in the right place.
Yeah.
Romanian turn 3, motivation was fine again. And I got reserves on. So I'm bringing on a platoon of Panzer IVs. This is where I will start measure from. We see these hedges just like the road goes on to the end. I did a cross here and still managed to get 2 of them stuck, 2 ones. So he's gone like, guys, whatever Romanian is for where the hell is everybody? It's a really rotten thing to have to do, but I need some over there because the reserves will come on. I guarantee them next turn, and then I'm going to be in real trouble. So I need some tanks over to help out. In terms of shooting, my mortars finally ranged in. Got a potential kill, I think, but failed. But they're pinned, and I'm hoping they'll stay that way. And then my artillery managed to range in here. Got a lot of hits on both houses, but remarkably good saves. This platoon is incredible what it can do for saves. But they're pinned. I don't know, they might stay that way, they might not. A little bit more movement around here just to line up more guys for defensive fire on the church there. And that's about it really. Everyone else, they fired and got nothing. And then everyone else just stayed got on the ground because I can't afford to stick my neck out there. So another fairly boring turn for me, but at least my artillery is now ranged in. Turn 4.
So for turn 4, my motivation, I was unable to unpin the mortars, unfortunately, so they're out of this turn. I could have moved them from into the template, but moving them back means they can't shoot anything because they're range. Moving them forward means I can't because I'm pinned, so I had to stay there and take the hit. And I've moved my guns now up into the hill to protect that side of the table.
Anything coming on here is not going to get concealment. Both of us are trying to dominate the attack routes through anti-tanks on the hill.
So I managed to get a reserve on, so I managed to get 4 tanks on, T-34s on. They basically moved up the road to try and next turn have a go here. I'm just so worried about the guns on that hill there. They're really dominating the the surrounding countryside there, so
They've
I really
got-
can't get any without.
36-inch range anti-tank, 13, so they're nasty.
Yeah, and I just can't get anywhere without taking some hits. So basically, I just had to try and shoot what I could, and I've concentrated my fire this time on these mortars. But as you can see, nothing killed, pinned. Hopefully they don't unpin. And I took some shots into the guys here, but you've managed to save everything, so it's not looking too good for this particular turn, because I've not managed to kill anything on. Just hope your mortars don't unpin so we don't start killing each other.
I think we both need help. We both need reserves to come on, and I need to try and find a way to be aggressive as well in this game, as it is just now, because I've got that huge lump sitting in my near my deployment zone. I'm kind of worried, but I still need to do something to win the game. I still have to get all the way over here, and as you can see, I've got nothing over here. Romanian turn 4. So in this turn, first of all, motivations was the mortars, and they're fine. I got more reserves on, so I have brought in my infantry, believe it or not, folks, and these guys rolled on the elite table. So I know I'm getting tanks in next turn. My infantry might do better against this lot than the tanks will against them. In terms of the rest of the movement, these guys successfully got over to the edge. I'm now going to bring them over to protect this side. Everyone else stayed put. In terms of shooting, the only thing I did was artillery. The mortars managed to get 2 dice for firepower to kill again and failed. That's 3 failed firepowers against those mortars, so they're actually living a bit of a charmed life. And then over here, I failed more firepowers to kill, but the 75s managed to get 1 from that platoon and the heavy machine gun from that platoon. I need to build up more around here to be able to get an attack on though, and figure out how I'm going to make it happen and hold over here. So you can hear the grey matter burning, smell the grey matter burning, folks. Turn 5.
So for Russian turn 5, I managed to get all my motivations completed, so these guys are unpinned, but didn't actually manage to kill anything in the return bombardment, even though I was re-rolling failed misses. You made all your saves. So an event for that side of the table. I managed to get my last 2 reserves on, so basically got the unit in the HQ. I've pushed up, passing bogging checks to get to the edge of this wood, because the idea being I've then got 9 tanks trying to go for your big guns, always hitting 6s and 7s because of the range and things.
And I was going to ground.
Got the ground. As you can see, nothing killed yet, so you survived that, and I could get some shots coming back at me. I did force a save, which you firepower, which I never made. I got a 1, my usual 1. So and again, tried to get your mortars, never killed anything else. So quite an uneventful shooting, because I'm trying to whittle you down, because I'm about to launch an assault, but it's still too much there to take me back off of it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm still alive, but I'm nowhere near winning the game, guys.
Yeah.
Romanian turn 5, motivations were fine. Reserves, I got just the 3 dice, I just got 1 on, so I've brought my HQ on. In terms of movement, these moved up onto the hill to help support the attack sitters. They're moving out for the attack with the help, as you can see there, of a smoke bombardment. And that came in from the mortars. My artillery managed to miss every single guy in here. There's about 7 guys in there and never rolled above a 3. But I got a few hits here, loads of hits actually. Only 1 failed at save though, and I managed to kill it. But more significantly, the attack sitters managed to destroy 2 T-34s and Bear 1, and then with these guys, they managed to, thanks to a 1 and a 1 for the saves, kill the bailed and the unbailed one. So they're gone now. And this was a risk I was discussing with Brian earlier. If they don't get kills on these, the pain comes back big time. So I've now got the start of an attack. Remember, I've got more reserves to come on, and my defence is looking a bit better, but we cannot discount these. They're still in very good nick, these infantry. So maybe Brian just has to think about, if one thing didn't open the can, different can opener needed So over to him for turn 6. Turn 6.
So turn 6 for the Russians isn't looking too clever. This side of the table, nothing's really happening. Waiting for the smoke to clear and a potential assault coming in and see what I can do about that. So this side's taking care of itself. It's all not happening across here. So I don't know, I just kept rolling dice and dice and dice, and as you can see, nothing died on the infantry that I was shooting at with the mortars.
I think there was a chance of getting a couple of mortars, but I made my saves, even with rerolls, and then you missed every one of them with the mortars, even with
So I've got the mortars
rerolls.
coming in, and the machine guns going in, nothing's killing them at all. So I had to go with my 10 shots at the guns, at your anti-tank guns, and never made a dent. I think you made 2 saves.
Yeah, you got 2, you needed 6s, you got 2 hits, but I made the saves.
So I managed to shoot and scoot 4 tanks back, one's been left a little bit exposed. At least the idea is they came back out to get some cover, and then
they can redeploy from there.
Redeploy from there.
Romanian turn 6. The mortars unpinned. I got my last reserves on, and I've brought them up here. This road network's been quite handy for dashing, because the 2 roads leading off. So they've gone up there. The HQ platoon here. The armoured infantry moving over towards the objective. This other platoon is edging along. I'm worried about this flank. I've been worried the whole time about this flank. This side is a bit more protected. This flank is a bit more open, so I'm positioning myself more towards that way. And then in terms of shooting, you can see the first thing I did was successfully manage to range in smoke, use my HQ as an observer down there. And a 75, that's why I take 75s instead of 100s. So shooting over here, there was Panzer IVs, the half-tracks, never really doing anything. Oh no, the half-tracks killed one.
Yep.
Using their MGs, managed to get a failed save and a 6-up firepower. And then the mortars ranged in, my mortars finally passed the firepower and killed one. So they're no longer re-rolling misses, and they're pinned. And then over here, 2 attack resitters could see him, and they rolled 4 dice needing 5. They got 3 6s, folks. So he's dead. The other one fired at the house. They fired at the house. No casualties, and the infantry are staying on the ground for the moment because they're shooting guys in bulletproof cover. That's not a big threat to me. If they're in bulletproof cover, and I need 6s, even if they fail the save, so I'm happy for that to stay put. So I've got my attack finally coming in over here. This is what I talked about, all my mobile stuff on the one side. But there's still a lot of assets, nasty assets that can do something. And next turn there'll be no more smoke. Forgot to say, folks, for the rolls from reserves, these guys were not elite. The armoured cars were elite, not elite, and the infantry elite. Turn 7.
So for my turn 7, across this side of the table, what I've decided to do is actually move the infantry across into this building as much as I can to protect this objective, relying on the 3 tanks here to hold the second objective, because the smoke's here, I can't do any firing back at the moment, although I did take a couple of shots at your half tracks and never done anything. Across here I decided to go, let's start moving forward and try and take in some assault. So basically I'm going to have to give up on this objective because the guns are just crippling me here, so I've decided to try and sneak my way around and attack the church. So I moved the units back into this building here to get as much fire as I could at the church, and the second unit down to launch an assault. I lost 2 at defensive fire, and then we went into assault, and I think we lost 2 stands each, but you've eventually won, and I've had to break off. The assault, I did try and give them some supporting fire through a blitz move, and I managed to get 2 tanks forward. So although I had a lot of fire coming you to try and pin you, I never managed to pin.
3 hits because I stayed got on the ground.
Yeah, but I still went in for the assault even though I didn't pin you. Only losing 2, get into the assault, but we lost 2 stands each.
Yeah, it's unfortunate you lost 2 saves against my 4 hits in defensive fire. Otherwise, you would have killed the first 2 guys you contacted. As it was, you only killed 1 out of 2. And then I killed one of you back. You killed one of me back, I killed one of you back, and that was the end of that. But these guys are pulled back now. The platoon is whittled down a bit. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 5 left in that platoon, 3 left in that platoon, but there's maybe still an avenue
Get the rest of them across. Yeah.
to come around. There's just not so many guys left there now. That's the problem. And that's why I moved these over, because I was more worried about that than that. So I'll have to see if I can do anything over this side, folks. Romanian turn 7, so I think there was only one rally in the past. So in terms of movement, these guys have moved over to look down there. Everyone else is staying put. Lots of movement over here, as you can see. The guys stayed put, everything else moved. So in terms of shooting, the mortars managed to get hits on both the guys in the house and the mortars, but no kills. Or maybe one kill actually in the house. And then the other artillery, the 75s, they ranged in on the greenhouse as well, managed to kill the commissar, which is fortunate. These guys here all hammered into them, but no kills. And then over here, needing 60s because I got on the ground, I only managed to get one hit in a bale. So they're fearless. If they get back in, they can do a bit of damage to me. They could get one of my platoons. Remember, these guys are 5 up last stand, so that could deal with one of those platoons quite easily. But these guys are in a position now, next turn, to come out and have a go at them. And then over here, 3 shots downrange, got 1 hit, but it was a save because 11, anti-tank 11 against 7 because of long range, you just bounced it. But I want to keep protecting that flank. That's the only way I see, definite way I see of getting in here, like from there to here, outflanking the anti-tank guns and such like. So I've got an attack on here. We'll see if Brian can fend it off and if he can get any more progress on this side. Turn 8.
Right, so motivations then, from the start of my turn, I didn't manage to unpin the mortars, so they've not been able to do anything at all in there. It's left them a bit exposed across that side of the table. And these guys here did manage to unpin. No, they didn't. Sorry. You sure?
Aye.
Did they have to unpin?
Yeah.
So they're still pinned?
Yeah, got stuff killed by bombardment and such like.
That's right, they did. Which meant the bonus, apologies, yeah. Across this side of the table though, this is where I'm trying to move up again into this space. So, this unit sort of came out of the unit here and did a follow me unsuccessfully. So the unit commanders charged forward, but the rest just a normal 8-inch move. This tried to dig in, but didn't because they're now exposed.
And they didn't
try and shoot.
And they didn't unpin.
Didn't unpin either, and they tried to get across in here. So basically, I then tried to do some movement. So I managed to get 2 tanks out of the wood to get a number of shots at your Panzer IVs. And I managed to kill a Panzer IV at long range.
Needing 6s.
Needing 6s. The other shooting I managed to do was the Panzer Faust. Managed to bail out only one of the...
Yeah, they used a limited 2 Panzer Faust, 2 shots, 1 hit, and it was only a bail.
But I managed to kill 2 Panzer IVs and bail one, so I'm hoping that's going to run away and that's one less unit to worry about. Oh, I'm sure these guys are going to come out and attack me with Panzer Faust as soon as they can.
Yeah, that was 3 shots, 3 hits, guys, against Careful, so rate of fire 1 can be useful in the right circumstances.
Yep.
Romanian turn 8, so... Forgot to do the artillery, but it doesn't matter. So Romanian turn 8, first of all, motivations, everything was fine. That half-track didn't get back in though. Why? This tank remounted and stayed. In terms of movement, the guys ran away for the church. I don't like those guys running through. The Panzer IVs moved around as well. They don't have to fight them because of what other things are going on the table. Just need to keep the objectives alive. And then over here, in terms of movement, the guys dismounted, moving along a little bit to the side and to the front of the SU-100s. 1 flanking shot from a Panzer IV as well, moving up through there. Everything else stayed put. So in terms of shooting, forgot to do the artillery, but it didn't matter, folks, in the end. In terms of shooting, all these shots coming in, him on the side, he missed. A Faust on the side missed. They guys managed to get 1 hit out of 6, needing 5s, but they easily made it safe. Here there was shots flying in all over the place, but not doing any damage from the machine guns and from the cannons. And over here, I just tried to clobber these guys in the open. They took millions of hits, but they made millions of saves. And in the end, they lost 1 to machine gun fire and 2 to these guys. And then the assault, I took 2 hits in defensive fire on the way in, because there was only one guy in this building who had line of sight and 3 tanks. Got 2 hits and 2 died, believe it or not. And then I went in for the assault, managed to kill 1 using the Faust, and the other ones broke off, and that was enough for me to get the win because I'd started within 4 inches of the objective. So that's it. That's a win for the Romanians. So we'll go over for a recap. Right folks, over for a recap. First of all, Brian, you've not used Soviets before, so your impressions are probably going to be very useful for everyone. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I probably didn't play them to the best advantages because I've got some tanks with some great speed, but being fearless, I think they were chewed up quite quickly.
Being aggressive.
Being aggressive, sorry. They were chewed up quite quickly there. I do like the infantry. I think the infantry are really quite, impressive. If you get them in here, they can really do some damage. I just didn't get them in quick enough. Lack of smoke though in this particular was a big problem. And artillery. I like my artillery because obviously I couldn't hit your guns. I couldn't hit your guns at the back.
Yeah.
So I was
limited
really
range of the mortars.
Because mortars you'd probably push up forward in a deployment because of this particular deployment zone, that L shape. They had to be back anyway.
You could have pushed them further forward, but they would have been standing out by themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I do like these, but then I suddenly realised they don't have machine guns, so there's no defensive fire when somebody comes in. They've only 3 main guns, and they're really pretty struggling defending that hill against infantry. So I'm probably a bit tainted because obviously I never won the game, but hey, I never won the game anyway. But I think you can get lots on the table, and I do like that. You still got 3 infantry units that were good, at the smaller size.
They are tricky. They really are tricky to use and to attack with. You were able to get up into this bulletproof cover and then ready to launch an assault, and then it was calculate defensive fire. No. And that is what it's like so often with infantry. You can get to where you need to be. You might get blown to bits on the way, but when you get there, are you going to actually be able to get the assault in? That's where, like me, I thought you were going to come in through this and then try and outflank my position. The coming straight on wasn't as clear a path as going around the side. And the terrain wasn't necessarily all in your favour in this game as well. So it was hard for you to deploy your T-34s because it is either sit behind the buildings or come up front.
Yeah, I think I would play this list of game because ideally, when you actually get into it and you know what you're playing with, if they've got a cross check anything but a 1, they can potentially get up there quite easily, and the speed as well. If you get an open table, so you can actually almost do a pincer movement. Send the artillery, the infantry up, and bring the tanks in round the back and the sides if you get the terrain to help you on that. So
and you could easily swap these out. If you're not worried about Panthers, you're just going to kill them on the flank anyway. Swap them out for another platoon of tanks or for artillery and more stuff to boost the core unit.
I'd see what artillery I could get instead of the mortars, because I think something with longer range with potential smoke might be of benefit.
The mortars are only 4 points, so it's not so much of a logical swap out. But if you've got 8 points, those guys are 19, I think. So you could spend 8 points of that straight away on 122 mils, or 6 points on the 160 mil mortars, and that would give you the chance to deal with anti-tank guns to then allow your tanks in. There you go. There's Brian's first go with the with Soviets, guys. Let's think what your own ideas are in the comments. I've used the Romanians again. Guys, I think the Romanians are probably one of the most overpowered lists in the game. Obviously, there'll be formations they come up against that they won't be very good against, but when you consider they're careful, they're hitting 3s in assault, counter-attack on 3s in assault. They've got those tac recitas with 36-inch anti-tank 13. You know, that only the toughest tanks can deal with that. So I think, once again, the Romanians are proving to be a really, really tough list. And when you consider what support options you can bring along for them, guys, they're the elite Romanians anyway, I think they're probably a little bit overpowered. But that was another chance for you to see the Berlin Soviets as well. Nexus onto Berlin German, and you can get some Germans out for that. Brian, there's so many weird and wonderful lists that you can put together for it. But anyway, that's enough waffle from me. As always, folks, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks to everyone who just drops in from time to time to watch the games. And if you'd like to hit the subscribe button to build the channel, hit the bell button, and that means we'll definitely see you all on the next one. Cheers, folks.
Thanks, Em.